The other day, I saw this video from DT. Now, this isn't going to be a response video or DT wrecked video. He's so wrong about everything. Nothing like that. I think this is a really good video. I love the new format. I think the camera's a little bit too close, but apart from that, it's overall a really good video. But this sort of got me thinking. So what it's about is basically when people had access to the internet, but it wasn't constant access. If you wanted to access the internet, it had to be a conscious decision. You couldn't just go and, grab your phone and turn your Wi-Fi on. You had to decide, okay, I'm going to block my phone line and use the internet right now. He says that life was better back then. Now, I wanted to sort of give my perspective on this because I feel like the time that I grew up was a really weird time. So I'm sort of in like that last generation that sort of spans across both sides of not really having widespread access to the internet and constant access everywhere. Because especially in Australia, up until maybe like 2008, 2009, getting decent internet just wasn't really a thing. So right now I am 23, and up until I was about 9 or 10, I just didn't even have an internet connection in my house. I was living in rural Queensland. My parents didn't know what the internet was. I didn't know what the internet was. We just did not have a connection. I think some of my friends might have had one, but I don't recall ever actually using it. The iPhone came out when I was 8 or 9, 2007, 2006, somewhere in that range, but no one my age actually had a phone. I think when I was maybe 12 or so, I got my first flip phone, and that was only because my parents felt like it was safer when I was actually starting to walk home for me to actually have one. It wasn't really until mid-high school, I would say, that people actually started having widespread smartphones. I didn't even want a smartphone when I was originally offered one. I didn't think there was really any point to have one, so I've sort of lived half my life on both sides of that fence. Even when we just didn't have an internet connection, when I went to a friend's house, that meant one of two things. One, we'd go outside and actually do something in the real world. Usually it would be something like riding our bikes around until we puncture a tire because we're riding through places we probably shouldn't be riding through. And we'd realize we're too lazy to drag our bikes back. We just go and chill out in the park for a while, eventually make our way back, probably riding the bike back with a punctured tire, and then we'd be done for the day. But other times we'd just sit at home and play some video games. But even when we're just playing video games in a room together, what we were doing was playing local co-op, or maybe swapping control back and forth if it was something single player. We weren't doing anything online. Sure, you'd go and like screen peek and that would make an absolute mess of the game and you'd hate each other after doing that, but you're both actually screen peeking. You're just pretending like one of them's not. But you were doing something that you couldn't do when you were apart. Compare that to now, though, where I notice, like, my nieces and nephews, they will have a friend over, and they'll just be, like, sitting in a group playing Fortnite on their phones. They won't be playing locally, they'll be playing online with just random other people. There's no reason why they would actually need to be together to even be having that exact same experience. They could just be on Discord doing the exact same thing. It's not like they're even talking to each other and really playing the game together. Basically, they've all got their phones, which are presumably their own phones, which is such a weird thing for children that young to actually have. They've got their faces in their phones, and they're all just in their own little world, basically playing the game by themselves. Now, I don't think that widespread access to the internet is inherently a bad thing. I think this has massively improved a lot of people's lives around the world, and taking that access away would be a massive step backwards. For one thing, I would not be able to run a channel like this without widespread access to the internet. Now, this doesn't mean that the internet doesn't have a pretty terrible social impact, even on people who could seemingly exist perfectly fine for most of their lives without having an internet connection whatsoever. So I remember back when I was maybe 12 or so about 11 years ago, when I had to teach my mother how to email her timesheet to her work, because for whatever reason, they weren't accepting paper copies anymore and would only accept it through email. So I, as a child, had to teach a fully grown adult how to send an email. I had to do that a couple of extra times after that, and then not long after, she discovered Facebook, then she discovered she could use Facebook on her phone, and that's when basically she became attached to the internet as well. Someone who spent most of their life without an internet connection, now every time I speak to her, basically she's just scrolling through Facebook, not really doing anything, just always on Facebook. Whenever I go and visit my parents, or maybe we go out to have some dinner, usually I'm the one living in the real world, whereas they'll be the ones attached to their phone, just scrolling, looking at nothing, just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling while I'm trying to have some sort of meaningful conversation. And it's not just them. Basically, everyone is like this. So you go and like hang out with your friends. Usually what you would expect is you're going to hang out with people, you're going to talk to them, but a lot of people are just in their own little world looking at their phones, maybe like half participating in the conversation. But I find this to be really, really annoying. Like, if I'm hanging out with you, I'm hanging out with you. I don't want to hang out with you while you're on your phone. That's not a fun experience. It's one thing if you're trying to show off something with your phone. For example, my mum likes to go out traveling places and take pictures of random things. In that case, yeah, show off the pictures on the phone. That, I think, is a perfectly valid use for that. And then once that's done, put the phone down and just stop looking at it. But a very, very large number of people just grab the phone and sort of just, like, fiddle with it. And just fiddle with it like sort of an ex-smoker fiddles with, like, a bag of chips or fiddles with a coin. Just something to keep their hands sort of distracted. It's very, very reminiscent of that sort of behavior. Am I saying it's very much like an addiction? Yes, I am. Am I saying it's like an addiction that a lot of people don't really want to admit exists or admit they actually have a serious problem with? Absolutely, yes it is. And while it's sort of weird in my generation where there's a lot of people who, you know, can actually have real-world conversation with people and a lot of other people who are very much attached to their phones, I've noticed in the younger ones, like my young nieces and nephews, it is really, really bad. And as people who are attached to their phones start having kids, it's going to get worse and worse, and the cycle is going to continue. One great example of this is when I was a kid and had to go shopping with my parents. When I was that young, I didn't have a handheld console, I didn't have a phone that could connect to the internet. When I'm shopping with my parents, I just had to be bored. That's basically all I get. Maybe I could like try to reach for stuff on the shelves or try to like have a conversation with myself or talk to my younger sister. Things like that. That's basically all I got. Now what I notice though is kids don't exactly have to be bored when they go shopping anymore. I work in a supermarket and I've noticed there are like 4-year-olds that have a Nintendo Switch and are playing things like Fortnite while they're actually at the shops. Or they'll have a tablet that is bigger than their head, and the entire time the shopping is being done, they are just watching whatever TV show 5-year-olds watch at this point. I have no idea. Some sort of TV show. But the problem with this is when a kid is that young, they need to learn what it actually means to be bored sometimes, because they need to learn that being bored is a perfectly normal thing. You don't have to be excited about everything that's happening in your life, and I can only imagine what someone like that is actually going to grow up into. And then what about when that generation becomes old enough to start having kids? The next 20 to 40 years, I feel like is going to get considerably worse, and I don't know if people are even going to be able to maintain real-world social interaction. I don't think there's anything wrong with having, like, online video communication, online text communication, things like that. But if you're going to be talking in person, I want to actually be talking in person and looking at the person I'm talking to, not looking at the back of their phone. And as the days go on, it becomes easier and easier to always be attached to a technology, and as things have more tech integrated into them, I wouldn't be surprised if in maybe 20 years, for like the standard package on a new car, not adding any extras, you will just have screens built into the back seat, and even when you're sitting in the car with your children, you just never have to actually talk to them. I am by no means anti-internet and anti-technology. I feel like that would be pretty hypocritical running a channel like this, but I do think that this over-dependence absolutely is not healthy. So once again, if you did not see DT's video, I highly recommend watching it. There'll be a link to it in the description down below, and I hope you like sort of my perspective on this, the Zoomer perspective, if you will. Let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. I feel like I'm going to get some people saying the internet is just inherently evil, which they're going to say on the internet, but that's what I get from my YouTube comments. So that's going to be everything for me, and before I go, I would like to thank my supporters. So a special thank you to Joachim Donald, Logan Michael, Andre Nathan, David Carl, Mitchell Will, Brennan, Chica Bento, Jamie Joseph, Josh, Peter D, Stephen T, through Tony Tushar, and all of my tutorial supporters. If you'd like to go support work, them links down below to my Patreon, subscribe style, leave a that sort of stuff. I've got my podcast, tech over tea available basically anywhere. I've got a gaming channel where I live stream twice a week. That is Brodie Robertson Plays. And then this channel is also available over on Odyssey. That is going to be everything for me, and I'm out.